Okay guys, it's the first week without any League of Legends. Vivien, why are we here?
Okay, so basically I was getting bored. I decided to book the Surf House of Proximus and I found you guys waiting outside the studio for no reason. So I decided to invite you in. So we're gonna watch the best of the regular season together, give our reaction, and we're gonna start off with Ion Squad versus 4MS. Is that alright?
Yeah.
Sure. Okay, let's go.
Hier meteen heel veel damage. De Ghost wordt gepopt door Domi. Op wie gaat hij engage? Gaat hij voor Dragon? Gaat hij voor de fight? Met 2-man charmen. Maar Mish is nog altijd levend. En het is de Dragon die gestolen is geweest door Domi. Frenzy gaat proberen de escape. Maar kijk, van de andere kant Pascali zit daar te dealen. En Fliff kan daar ook 2 mensen killen. 3 zelf. En de fight is gewonnen.
Dino, what do you think?
Phoenix in that clip showed us that he came to play in the first week. I remember that in the beginning we thought this was the strongest top side, like Phoenix and Domi, they would control the entire league, and it was really good to see in the first week. It was insane.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of great top laners this season, and as you said, Phoenix was expected to be the best, but then we saw like Roba, Zergot, even Pascali, we saw such a huge level on this lane.
The thing is with the top laners, I think the skill gap, or at least after like week 2 and 3, the skill gap between the top laners was the closest from all the roles.
Yeah.
I think that's every matchup could have been won by another top laner.
True.
It's also the first week that we saw Ion Squad play because we never seen them before. Seeing them performance versus 4MS was pretty impressive. I think it put them on the map in the Belgian League as one of the strongest contenders for the first places in playoffs.
I think Marrow also really surprised me here because I knew he played Diana, stuff like that, and suddenly he picks the Seraphine and he carries his entire team on like a supportive enchanter in the mid lane, which is pretty insane.
Next clip?
Let's go.
Zo komt neer. Sis is daar gestuurd. Maar hier komt ook nog Pascal.
This is where Peter goes in.
Is this the first Baron steal?
Yeah, it was the first one.
No, this is his second one. This is
second already?
One. Yeah.
It's the second one.
He did the first one in the first.
First one is first week. So Peter already flexing on the league.
Yeah, because I remember the meme with like the 3 fingers they made with all the
with the 2
objectives he
fingers.
stole.
Yeah.
Wow. And
That
they
was-
end up acing them.
They won the game.
Yeah, they
That's
won
why
the
we're
game
seeing
right
this.
after.
They're finishing the game.
Yeah, I didn't remember that.
I don't even know. Like I think they might have been 1 man down when Peter went in as well.
Yeah. That rings a bell. That rings a bell.
That rings
Sorry.
a bell. Oh, that was so good though.
But this is also the moment when people were like, "Oh, Genk, they can win
they might
games."
be strong.
They
They might be good. I really like this clip too because it was still in the beginning of the splits. And for elements, we had high expectations about them, and Genk beating them. We were like, okay, so who are really the real contenders for the title?
I actually like the fact that we saw Genk pull off kind of a not pure meta comp. That's also one of the first teams that we saw in the Spring Split of the Belgian League able to work around the meta with like comfort pick. And we see here Peter with his Ivern stealing his second Drake of the league week 2. That's pretty amazing. And that made me believe in Genk for the rest of the season.
It's also 2 things, right? Because Kapstok, he got his Anivia, which he never got anymore after. And you could see 2 things here. It's what 4 Elements didn't have was like they didn't really have a good team. I don't want to say atmosphere, but they didn't have a good team cohesion. And Genk had it straight from the get-go. They were like 5 friends, they were playing, and they weren't like 5 team members who needed to become friends.
That's very true.
It was really hard to know how good these teams were because in the first week, KVM and Ion Squad, they both won like both their games, and they came into the second week. And you're like, okay, as Paul said, like who is our bottom team, who is our top team? We still didn't know because KVM looked shaky. They won against Sector 1, but it was pretty close. So no one put them up there. And then Genk came in with this game, and you knew Peter stole Baron twice. You saw that Anivia, and you were like, oh, maybe Genk is the 4th team that's going to go to playoffs. Maybe they will make a deep run. It was really interesting. That second week shaped our expectations in such a way, and then if by now we know what actually happened, it's really weird to see this again.
So now I want to see some big muscle top lane action. Do you have this?
There should be some, yes, for likes. Let's watch.
Is this the one where Zergo just goes
Yeah.
absolutely ham?
Yeah. When you think it's lost right now, and then Zergot pops up.
And then the big muscle.
Yeah.
Here is the big muscle.
Big muscle. Big muscle.
World ender.
Phoenix too, big muscle
Yeah.
with his gnar.
Yeah. Yeah, because this was clean. This was
Oh,
very
this was
clean.
a
And
very
really it
long
was like
fight.
the end of the fight.
This is before before the Aatrox change.
yeah, when we
his
still had
speed bar.
Goldrinker, Sterak, and it
Gold
was...
Rinker Sterak, and it was like just regaining. Like,
Oh, he's low. He's low. He's low.
he's not low, he's not low, he's not
And
low.
Phoenix will try to chase him, and then he knows that he can't.
I realized that 2v1.
I love that
Phoenix
they two. The two of them ran away like, no, we're not dealing with Zergo.
Phoenix wanted to go back.
Yeah,
Phoenix wanted to go back.
Yeah, it's
Zergo.
Phoenix. He doesn't want to back
And then
off.
he's back. He's back.
still
he's back.
trying, but they
He's still
can't
trying
catch
to
him.
kill him.
Was that the big muscle top lane action you wanted to see?
I enjoyed it.
It's actually a very good showdown between the two top laners, Zergoth and Phoenix, two of our best top laners in the league, being very aggressive, being very decisive for their teams. And this match was pretty intense. Like, we saw Sector 1 lose versus KVM in the first week, but then they had to win versus Ion Squad to make a place for themselves. So this was a good performance, even though they finished with a loss in the end.
Yeah, it was quite hard to predict every game between Ion Squad and Sector 1. It was really hard to predict. It was close games. It were really close games. And like in both games, we had some really interesting moments to watch.
That's why this game was so important. As you said, like Sector 1 and Ion Squad, nobody really knew who's the strongest of the two. And this was the first time we ever saw them against each other.
And also, I think this one shows pretty much like the disconnect you had with Sector 1 in the beginning, where Aesthetic suddenly looks at Mundo jungle. And I knew on the cast, I was like, wait, that's a patch early.
Yeah.
It's still a tank. But then he actually performed on the tank, and you saw like his playstyle should be a little bit, well, good enough for that patch.
Could have
So
been
his
better.
playstyle should have been more controlling, but they lacked that aggression. And then Zergot already showed up in this game, really big.
I think it was the first one for him.
Yeah, it was the first one where we're like, okay, Zergot might actually be the best top laner in the
Yeah.
Belgian league.
You know who we haven't seen yet? KVM.
That's true.
Dan kunnen ze kijken of
That's
het
actually
is
that-
in verhouding misschien.
That's Domi, like,
That was,
overextending.
Pantheon Shen, right?
Pantheon
Yeah,
Shen,
it was
yeah.
a Shen support.
Bordeaux was...
Bardo had a lot of kills this game.
This was pretty amazing.
Urban aggressive jungler starting a meme.
And Mikko actually like popping off on his own.
And Maro on Yuan.
And that's Bram just...
But it's like Maro is once again just picking up random champion doing super well.
Yeah, he could play anything.
Well, the fight went in KVM's favor. That was the final moments for both of those teams in the first half of the split. We were waiting for this match for the whole duration of the first half. KVM and Ion Squad going into this match like completely undefeated. And clearly, the better team was Mechelen.
This was so close, so interesting, because as you said, they were both undefeated. We knew at the end of this week we would have an undefeated team and one would take their first loss. And it was Iron Squad, but it was so close.
I use it clearly, but I remember that the
It was
predictions in that week, every single caster predicted Iron Squad.
You're right, and then they made fun of
Every
us.
single caster. Every single caster. and
Didn't
they
you
made
predict
no,
KVM?
No.
No.
Okay.
all
No, no,
predicted
no.
Iron Squad.
Nobody dared.
The
The thing was, KVM won against Sector 1, but it looked really shaky.
Yeah.
That's very true,
And,
yeah.
and then they were all long games as well, their first game. So it was like, oh, how strong are they? And Iron Squad just demolished every team,
And this was
even
actually
Sector 1.
It's the
this
first
was
time.
actually their first very clean and convincing game, because the
Yeah.
others were okay, they won,
They were
but
having
this
fun.
one,
They were having fun with
Yeah.
it. But here versus Ion Squad, they were playing like smart. They were trying to make good plays. They were thinking about the way they were moving around the map, and it showed. They took the win. They went undefeated in the regular season.
The thing with in this game, it was very clearly shown that KVM still had like issues. They were like still learning to walk, and they were sometimes struggling over themselves. And that's why a lot of people said, I'm not sure, even after KVM won, KVM is the strongest team.
And by the way, speaking of KVM versus Genk, the next clip is basically that. Second half of the split, KVM versus Genk. Let's go.
is it a steal again?
No, it's
Oh,
not
yeah.
the steal.
I remember this draw.
versus Ivern, Zillion, and Kindred.
The triple
Don't get too excited.
Dida, you were so mad about this draft. You like honestly fuming when you saw these champions come out.
Oh, it's completely understandable. Like, you're trying to cheese KVM in the second half of the split. You're supposed to start off with a new way of getting into the league, but then you just do that.
You end up choosing yourself.
Honestly, Dida was like, but what's your winning lane? What's your winning lane?
but
You don't
that's-
have a winning lane.
That's because Genk, their draft fell apart and they were trying to fix their Anivia issues, but they couldn't. And that's the entirety of this clip. Just shows that how strong KVM was, because Genk was like, okay, we had this Anivia comp, we won. It constantly gets banned out. Let's do Ivern, Zillion, Kindred, weird stuff like Ivern top, because they tried to do that same stuff they had with Maokai support. And KVM suddenly is like, okay, we draft 3 bruisers, we put a Rengar in the jungle, they don't even play an AD carry, they just go Heimerdinger Shen, and they destroy Genk.
That's actually a very good point. I like the fact that KVM facing a team that drafted something really weird, that just relied on their own playstyle, their own strength, with the Heimerdinger, with the Rengar top to counter the Ivern. They were just so confident, and it showed, and I think that's where we saw that KVM had the potential to go 10-0 in the regular season.
Want to know a fun fact about this game? In the Belgian League, at least, it's the record for highest goal difference between two teams.
Yeah,
17,000, something
Yeah,
like
and
this.
if they hadn't like trolled a bit at the end, it would have been like 20k.
To me, it was also showing that Genk was struggling to find their own identity. They kept doing those weird drafts, changing completely from week to week. And then at this point, it was like, I don't know if they will manage to go to playoffs. It was close, but at this point, it was really hard to predict them going through.
And that's also why I think this clip showed, like in this match, showed how good KVM was, because you get thrown these curveballs, but they stay calm. They draft this really weird comp, but you saw in the way they played it, it's like it doesn't really matter what comp we play, we can execute, and they were so confident, just cleanly, like not even stressed out, just playing the game, and then in the end they took their fair share of time to finish it out even.
Yeah, the run for KVM's playoffs was done a long time ago, but Genk's was just starting.
And I think in the next week, Viso, for Elements and Genk, they played each other, and that was actually a battle to see who goes into playoffs, because Genk had 2 wins, but For Elements could still make that run, and that match was so important.
You've read my mind. I have the clip.
Oh,
Let's go. So 4 Elements still had a chance to qualify after this loss, if they took the loss.
Yeah.
Was this the game where Mish couldn't carry?
It was one of the numerous games.
The engage of X-Charm is just... He's running, he's not trying to use a spell, he's not trying to create space for his team.
Again, you have a bullet time that hits no one.
But they still managed to win, because a lot of their players, like you see it here, like that fight goes so bad in the beginning, but you still see like, okay, if you give Atlas the space, he can still damage a lot of people.
This was actually a clip, an interesting clip, because at this point in the tournament, it was really the battle for 4th place between 4 Elements and Genk. And so in week 6, having these teams head-to-head was such meaningful moment for the playoffs run. And yeah, in the end, 4 Elements managed to win, but yeah, it was close.
Wasn't a done deal. Like at this point, to me, Genk looked a bit stronger than 4 Elements, and they managed to keep losing against situations like this, where the positioning of 4 Elements was clearly suboptimal, where the engage from X-Charm is basically non-existent. But then you have Genk just playing it a lot worse than their opponents and just keep digging the hole they were inside of.
You saw that Genk had trouble finding more damage threats. Once the engage upon us, Anivia comp got banned out, they really fell apart. And I think this is the first time that we saw 4 Elements starting to fix some of their issues, where less disconnects, they were still there, but less disconnects on the engage is a little bit easier of a game plan as well.
But the problem is like they were starting to fix it, but they actually never fix it in the end. We talked about Mish again, and when you purely look at some stats, Mish is like, oh, he's dominating us, see us through the roof. But I never had one moment where like, oh, Mish is blowing my mind with plays. That never happened.
Yeah, I waited a lot for this player to perform, but then, as you said, Paul, like every bullet time was on one person or less, which is kind of a problem when you're playing Misfortune and a comp around Misfortune. So yeah, kind of a weird game. Four Elements took it, went to playoffs. This was the beginning
This was
of
the beginning
end.
of the end for him.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, true.
So yeah, next one.
Sure.
Oh no, not this one.
This game was actually one of the first game where Static popped off. He was actually really impressive
Yeah, it
in
was
this game.
the end of the season when we have been criticizing him, and I think we were right to do so during the whole season.
He was
And then
underperforming.
I don't think I know we were right
This is
to
where
do so.
Sisse every single game locked in Leona. Like every single game of Genk, Sisse was playing
Yeah.
Leona.
And then Knight just dodging
Oh.
every mystic shot. Like he doesn't. No, he ends up dying.
No, he doesn't die.
He doesn't die.
Honestly, I think
die.
Knight,
gets away.
like, I think he runs scripts or something. I know he doesn't. He
It's
dodges
amazing.
everything.
It's amazing. But he's an RM player, so of course he learned how to dodge every skill shot in the game five
Yeah.
times in a row.
I like this clip because for me, this is the first time I started getting hope in Sector 1 actually battling the top 2 again. When you see Knight suddenly performing, and as you said, Aesthetic was looking better. But it's also kind of sad because this is also the part where you knew, okay, Genk is probably not going to make it.
Yeah, at that point, Genk is basically out. I totally agree with you. And that's one of the week where Sector 1 had to perform because they had the double week to play. And it's also the first time, so as you said, that they started playing as a group and they had Forsaken in. So the 6th week was a bit shaky because they were still new to the new comp that they had pulled off. But now they were pretty convincingly beating teams that were potential contenders for the playoff spots.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird because this is one of the last times Knight was on the. Because Knight is a big name in the mid lane, right? And this is one of the last times you could see the high level Knight. As in, he was carrying, and after this week, Knight started carrying less, being less the front head of the team, and people like Zergot kind of took over.
yeah, it took a lot of time for Sector 1 to wake up during the season. But yeah, it finally happened in the end, and then in playoffs, we all know what happened, and it was really impressive.
I kind of want to see how Sector 1 was performing more towards the last week, because as a team, they improved so much these final weeks.
Sector 1 versus 4 Elements.
Sure.
Let's go.
Oh, this game was close. This is where they tried to pull off the wombo combo underneath the Azir turrets.
Yeah. And X-Charm actually managed to find good engages, but like the communication from 4 Elements, unfortunately, not enough. Look, like this.
Yeah.
This is amazing.
This
And
is
the
a
barrel
misfortune again,
connect.
and it's
only
one guy.
in bullet time.
I mean, but the problem here as well for Mish is that you have the Azir turret, you can't go that way, you have to go all the way around.
Yeah.
And that's the disconnect they still had.
Yeah, it was hard
Atlas.
for him to go in, but
Forsaken just free kill on Atlas.
But it's once again, 4 Elements just one engages, everyone else is somewhere else, and then they engage, the second person engages, the rest of the team is the other side of the map, and then roll the ball.
Well, actually, we've seen like X-Charm pull off some good engages during the season, and this was one of them, like 3-man ult. This is something that you want. And then, as you said during the clip, Mish is just standing there, popping his ulti on only one person when his support managed to find 3. So
Mechanically, it's okay, but
There's a problem in
game
communication.
situation-wise, you're split up, you're in your jungle, there's an Azir turret, you go in, Mish can't just run through the Azir turret, run through
Yeah.
Azir. And that's one of the biggest issues. But I think, for Elements, they kind of fixed this in playoffs, and this was the first time we saw those two battling out, and we knew, like in the end of the season, where we knew they have to face each other in playoffs. And I got good hopes for Elements at least taking one game of Sector 1.
yeah, I wasn't hoping much for 4 Elements, to be honest. I think when I saw this game, I was like, yeah, I think they are gonna have a very, very hard time in playoffs. And
They
yeah,
still
well,
showed up though.
yeah, it was 3-0,
yeah, they had to.
so
No, but no, I mean, they actually played good.
Yeah, okay, that's true, that's true.
They actually, like Frenzy in the playoffs, like after this, I think Frenzy got a little bit rid of his stage fright and he started playing aggressive in this game as well.
There was some personal stuff being better. Like individual players were getting better, but the team just didn't click, and we saw too much disconnect in the
But
team.
it's, as you said, like stage fright, because I talked a lot to Pascali, and he said our team performs way better in scrims than it does live.
Guys, I'm out of popcorn.
Oh, really?
Can we go? Yeah, I started eating it before you got here,
Oh.
so.
Let's just go sit somewhere else.
So we have our 2021 spring season champion. It's KV Mechelen. Did you guys expect it?
Not really, I'm gonna be honest. I thought it was gonna be Ion Squad. On paper, they looked better. They were players who had proven themselves in every role. And I thought they were gonna really make a team because they kind of also have a similar personality and a similar play style. And honestly, I thought KVM would be 2, maybe above, maybe under Sector 1, but apparently they did it.
I was expecting KVM to be in the top half of the leaderboard. I wasn't expecting them to be undefeated in the regular season. But seeing during the first weeks that they had this adaptability made me think that they were maybe the team to follow. And I think after the week 2 or 3, I was convinced.
For me, it was more the fact that they had Ithra light. So they had Ithra from last year, 3 players from there. You take a new jungler, and then you have Robba, who is actually a little bit too Amari. It made me put them a little bit lower, but it was just a recipe that started working. And I distinctly remember up until they faced Iron Squad, everyone thought what Xavier was thinking. Okay, Iron Squad is the strongest team in the beginning of the split, and then it turned out to be KV Mechelen. And I do think going into the playoffs, we saw KVM versus Iron Squad in the first game, but I don't think anyone expected the way that it went, that it would be a 3-0 in the end.
Dat betekent dat we de eerste game hier gaan hebben van de playoffs. KV Mechelen tegen Ion Squad. Beide teams hebben zich gekwalificeerd op de nummer 1 en nummer 2 plaats. Het is een best of 5. Kijk gewoon wat er gebeurt. Weer een 5-5 die wordt geforst. KV Mechelen wordt uitgespeeld. Robba die hier uiteindelijk de knock-up krijgt op onze Marrows. Die gaat nu neer. Death from Below wordt gebruikt. Wheel Fader gaat er ook aan moeten geloven. Tweede Death from Below. Is het genoeg? Bardo blijft levend. Vindt niet de kill, maar doet wel veel damage. Fliff blaast er op een gegeven moment iemand op. Maar de DPS van Mikkel blijft doorkomen. Phoenix probeert te doen wat hij kan, maar het is niet genoeg.
Iron Squad die de Baron stekt en KV Mechelen die moet reageren met double TP in de base te gaan voor de base race.
Deze base race kan interessant worden. Sliver pusht zo bijzonder snel towards de Baron zit of hij heeft HP. De toplane inhibitor gaat de weg worden om de game te halen. Het is een split push. Kijk naar de Baron. Die is op neer. Ze moeten de backstoppen. Oh, zijn air wordt gepopt. KV Mechelen is er wel aan het pushen. Iedereen zit nog binnen. De recall wordt gebruikt. Het is daar Dommy, maar kan Dommy neer. Mikkel doet zoveel damage. Mikkel dan is de fight en het clean. Dommy probeert op Sliver te raken, maar is het niet goed genoeg. Robba gaat neer. Sliver heeft geen turretjes meer beschikbaar, maar KV Mechelen Mikkel cleant iedereen. Trouble kill voor hem. The game is still alive. Kan hij de minions hier gebruiken als lifesteal? Nog maar 1 turret. Hij probeert het te doen. Kijk naar de dead timer. Het is 21 seconden op Marrows. Mikkel gaat het hier letterlijk solo doen. Mikkel gaat het hier kunnen finishen op zijn eentje. Mikkel, niemand zat hem in de weg. En het is Mikkel die uiteindelijk de game closed.
We zien hier een TP in de backline doorkomen, waarschijnlijk van Robba.
Bardo gebruikt zijn kneus om Wheel verder de knock-up te krijgen. Flash wordt geforceerd. Ze in de backline wordt daar lastig gevallen door Donny. De Cataclysm gaat het ook niet doen. Nog Bardo pakt het kill vallen door Robba's in world. En hier komt de Emperor's Divide. Die gaat Discord zaaien in de divide van KV Mechelen. Maar Robba die blijft overleven met die world. En als hij die takedown kan hebben, de Featherstone komt neer. Om Flip dat proberen neer te krijgen. Maar uiteindelijk is het KV Mechelen die, zoals we zeiden, teamfights clean uitspeelt. Oeh, Dommy die trouwens probeert de hypercarries neer te halen. Sliver die krijgt heel hard engage op hem, maar gaat gewoon niet neer. De shockwave kan door. Robba krijgt een knock-up. Vogelvrij, vogeltje is gevangen. En hetzelfde geldt voor Phoenix, Airline Urban. Verschillende game hier van de eerste. Het is vals als je zei KV Mechelen die de 2-0 heeft. Deze Baron is best wel allo. Kan Ion Squad hier uiteindelijk voor zorgen om hem neer te halen. Dommy heeft zijn flash beschikbaar, maar wordt van de pit weggehaald. En nu Ion Squad is aan het twijfelen. Moeten ze hier engagen? Urban die heel veel mensen heeft. 3 mensen met de Lilting Lullaby. Nu is er als eerste neer. Het is Marrows. Dan komt Robba hier. Die gaat Flip de hele tijd uit de fight houden. Mikkel aan het zoeken naar hem. Maar Flip wordt weggestapt. Gaat nu golden. Phoenix overleeft zo lang met de Goredrinker. Maar 4v1 gaat het ook niet lukken. En dit is KV Mechelen die de ace vinden. Een 0-3 victory gaat moeten afgeven. Het is KV Mechelen die onze eerste finalist is voor de Belgian League 2021.
I'm just gonna say it, KVM is crazy. Like the way they just play these fights, or it's not even the way they play a fight, it's just what they do after a fight. Or we're gonna sneak a Baron, we're gonna do a base race, and then when the base race doesn't work, we're just gonna do another one, like straight after. It's the way they just continue to focus as a team, and they fully commit to a play. It's so cool, and I love that that's how they won the finals, or that's at least how they played this first day out.
Yeah, they spent like so much time improving during the split, especially in the team fight area, because in the beginning I think most of us were thinking that Iron Squad was the best team fighting team, but then KVM showed that they could they could match them, that they could beat them, and so it was really impressive to see this in the best of 5. I think most of us thought that it would go to 3-2, 3-1, a much closer best of 5. In the end it was just 3-0. It was really impressive to see from KVM.
And it was over fast. And I remember the first game went on for so long, as you said, with those Baron plays and all that stuff. But then Mikkel impressed me so much in this series. It was like we already knew that he was a good mid laner and he played champs like a Yone. But in that series, he went from Tristana, being the focus of the first draft, into Orianna, which was like an safe option in the mid lane, and then into that Yone in 1 best of 3. And you saw that the difference that he made for KVM this year was so big. It already kind of hinted at what he could show us even in the finals. But at the same time, it's also the way that KVM learned to play around him. It just worked. It just worked really well.
I like the way they played this match versus Iron Squad. I also like the fact that after the first game they showed an immense mental fortitude to just be able to come back from this first game that was pretty hectic and ended up like lasting 52 minutes. To go back in the second game with a very aggressive play style, a very confident play style, very confident in themselves, but also their teammates. And that's, I think, the sign of a great team, able to take back from the first game, go back into the second one with a fresh mindset, being able to reset and to go all in the second game, something that Iron Squad failed to do so. And they showed it again in the finals.
Bij de eerste game van de final in jumpen liever van 2021. Het is KV Mechelen tegen Sector 1. Mikkel die wel. Instant daar. Liefjes onbelaafd. Engage komt neer. Tappert veet meteen op een sterk samen met Onstad of Shadows. Als sterk de fight moet halen. Forsaken wordt met de naar ultimate terug in de backline genokt. Unbreakable. Zet maakt zijn naam tot nu toe waar. Lulting Lullaby. Maar Mikkel moet uitkijken. Heeft wel nog ult, maar hier gaat hij golden. Teleport van Zurgot. Gaat die doen? Nee, de teleport van Zurgot. Raakt er die mensen? Zurgot pakt er 1, pakt er 2. En is dan daar aan het zoeken. KV Mechelen volledige disarray als Zurgot daar een triple kill haalt. Oh boy, ja. Mr. Worldwide zit net iets te ver hier. Gaat denk ik niet kunnen escapen. Zurgot, doe het toch! Het is zo extreem goed van hem. En Slipper gaat neer aan de Requiem. Zurgot blijft overleven met die Kingslayer heal. Hier komt de Casket ook nog. Maar hij blijft er healen. Dit is Meteos. Turn nu meteen de fight. En de fight blijft doorgaan voor Sector 1 die iedereen neerhaalt. Het is Mr. Worldwide die het blijft doen.
Sector 1 gaat hier voor de 2-0 en zetten zich op matchpoint in de Belgian League Finals.
Oh, Sleepy Bobo raakt. Hier moet je gaan proberen bodyblokken. Maar Zurgot is solo en hier komt de Death from Below samen met de Fear Beyond Death. Als Forsaken daar net niet low genoeg gaat. Mifios in de backline zit tegen Sliver en Bardo. En daar komt de Damager. Mifios wordt niet gekilld door de Death from Below. Maar het is uiteindelijk wel 2 mensen van Sector 1 die daar neer zijn. Mifios wordt opgepikt door de Sonic Wave van Urban. Double kill voor Urban. Nu is het do or die. Die Dragon auto-attacks gaan uiteindelijk wel damage doen. Heel veel burst beschikbaar van KV Mechelen Urban aan het zoeken naar de flank. Keert niet eigenlijk om de objective. Vooral die flanks opzetten. Mikkel die blijft die pedalstar zitten. De chompers worden nu neergezet. En de Dragon reset. Urban gebruikt hem om terug in te gaan. En overin gaan gesproken. Hier gaat Droppa. Krijgt er dan ook meteen. Zurgot leeft al op. Forsaken heeft die Unbreakable. En Sliver wordt uit de fight gehaald. Hetzelfde gaat voor Meteors.
Urban is bijna neer.
Daar de fight. Urban is bijna neer. Oh, maar heeft uiteindelijk de Dragon. En Sector 1 dan moet terug naar base gaan. KV Mechelen kan het hier niet helemaal doen. Knight is aan het wegrennen ook. KV Mechelen blijft naar voren spelen. Nog een kill. Get excited wordt dit Sliver, want hij heeft de fight kunnen overleven. KV Mechelen, Tide Healer Series. Na Sector 1 die een 2-0 start heeft, ziet er naar uit dat het een heel spannende finale gaat worden. En we weten nog niet wie de winnaar is.
KV Mechelen komt eraan, ze moeten snel zijn. Camille komt eraan. Sliver gaat hier misschien
Sliver hier zet de cage neer. 4 mensen die hier collapse op Sliver gebruikt. Denk op zijn flash. Hexacultimeter wordt gebruikt samen met de heroic entrance. En Zuggle het in zit opgeblazen. Forsaken moet ook nog weg. En KV Mechelen blijft als 1 unit. Als de Fear Beyond Death ook nog Forsaken meepakt. Knight zit vast. Heeft geen Sand Soldiers mee. Staat als general helemaal alleen. En Mikkel pakt ook nog de kill op.
misschien elke teamfight wel winnen, maar tegen een Elder Dragon is dat zo onmogelijk.
Een heel agressieve teleport. De turret van Ozier gaat ook wel direct neergaan. En nu wordt de engagement op. Fear Beyond Death of Meteos is de Meat Grinder. Je krijgt dan meteen nog de CC die landt. En het is Forsaken met heroic entrance. Gaat het niet uitmaken. KV Mechelen, hoe langer hoe meer. Is het de reverse loop? KV Mechelen, 16 games ongeslagen. Maar ze blijven het hier toch doen. Ze willen zeggen, we do not go gently into the Dark Knight. Als de eerste keer ooit Sector 1 niet de finale wint, maar KV Mechelen naar EU Masters gaat en onze finalisten zijn.
For me, this series is going to probably stay in the back of my mind for a long time. And it's just because we went in with high expectations, the grand final, and then those first two games you have Zergoth, who basically is destroying every hope you have in a series. You saw like the Aatrox game, you saw the Silas gameplay at the end, where they catch him and then he survives and the entirety of KV Mechelen dies, and you're feeling this fears like this is going to be a quick 3-0. But then all of a sudden KVM gets back up. They start drafting stuff like a Lee Sin. They get back into the game, and you have a series. And yeah, it was an emotional roller coaster, I think, for us, but also for the players.
I 100% agree, because KVM, they turned it around. I was expecting a very exciting final, like very close final. And then we saw the first two games, as you said, like, oh, Sector 1 in close games, Sector 1 probably going to win. And then KVM just pulled all of these other tricks out of their head where, yeah, we're going to put Lee Sin, or we're going to put the Jinx out as well, oh, another Vega, another... It's so well done from KVM, and it's so cool that they can pivot to whatever needs to be done. And remember, we had like something we said, it's the goal is the same. They just need to win 3 games. It doesn't matter if they lose 2. Just the goal is the same in the third game as it is in the first game.
There's something that we've seen starting from the second week, I think, of regular season versus Genk, an adaptability from KV Mechelen. And they've shown that, again, after losing the first 2 games of this BO5, putting the bot side top, swapping, choosing to play Lee Sin, picking Veigar, that's something that you don't see from a team that's being led 2-0 in a best of 5. So this is great showing from KVM. All right, they have a particular playstyle that forces them to innovate from time to time, but this is a way of playing, this is a way of living the game that's very different, very more relaxed and more confident in themselves, and I'm very eager to see what they can do with it in the long term and on the international stage.
The whole story was beautiful. When you look at the top 3, you had Sector 1, they were the dominant kings of 2020. You had Iron Squad, who was the very, very strong contender, ending the season with only 2 losses against KVM, and you had KVM being undefeated. And then they come to the playoffs. You have this first best of 5 that goes up to 5 games between Iron Squad and Sector 1. A very, very like emotion-heavy best of 5, and then it ends with KVM being contested for the first time, and that was really the most surprising, because some of us were expecting a 3-0 from KVM as they had done for the whole split, but no, Sector 1 put like such a strong performance, leading the best of 5 2-0, and then KVM winning the finals with the first reverse sweep of the Belgian League. I think that's one of the best stories we could have.
Well, gentlemen, I think this is it. This is the end of the Spring Split. It was a pleasure working on it with you, and thanks for everything you put in it. It was better because of you guys and because of everyone here at Proximus, so thank you. And we'll leave it at that, I think. See you next split.